Alright, so this is For Honor, and I'm in the Samurai faction, so yeah, if you ever see the Samurai faction, join us. Like, trust me, like, if you join us, I can teach you to not use a stance. My friend says you need a stance, I say who needs a stance. And I'll show you what I mean. I actually just posted like a little short, who needs a stance, where I beat an AI in about 9 seconds with no stance. I'm gonna basically teach you the fundamentals of using no stance, so that you too can use no stance. So number one thing you need to know, there's starting position and your starting position. Whenever you go into a stance, which you're not going to be using, you have an automatic one. So here it's right. And you will only throw rights when you're out of stance. And you see her starting one is left. So she's over here, I'm over here. So then I can hit her, and she can't block unless she moves at last second.
Round 2.
But if two people starting ones are the exact same, like if I was right and she was right, then nothing would happen. It would just be infinite dodges.
Victory.
And especially against a stupid AI like this, you know, it's going to be easy to win. But in normal 1v1s, you do want to be dodging. You want to be using your guard breaks. Don't be afraid to feint attacks. Don't fight normally like you would with a stance, but don't use a stance. So I can see there she blocked my heavy attack. But that's fine, because we attack so fast that they can't do anything. And during 4v4 matches and stuff like that, it's easy to do because you have a bunch of teammates with you. Like, don't forget loot. Loot's a very important thing that you need. I spent some decent amount of money trying to just upgrade this one guy. And we gotta fight over here because this is where the samurais are fighting. And we're actually losing a great bit of soldiers. Alright. We're gonna get in here, have our troops be deployed. A tip I can give you for when you're playing base game like multiplayer, just do war. War is a nice thing to do. It helps out your faction. You can get money from it. You can get a bunch of stuff from doing war. And it's a passive thing too. As you play, you get more troops, and you use those troops and deploy them onto the field, like I just did. And when they're deployed out into the field, the more you have defending, a better chance you have of keeping that, or if you're attacking. Alright. As you see there, he blocks that. Also, watch out for running out of stamina. That will happen to you if you're not careful. As you can see here, I lost because I let my guard down. That's the other thing about using no stance. You have to, and I mean have to keep, you have to keep your eye on your enemy, because there is no stance to help you with that. You gotta know where they are and go for it. Watch out for guys like this that hit you with their combos and their breaks. Basically, I'm saying watch out for any attacks coming your way, because you can't block them. You physically cannot block them. Now, I'm not saying never use a stance. Use a stance if you want to use a stance. I personally just don't like using stances. I just want to get in here and go. So as soon as he blocks that, you can enter your stance to block, like so, and then immediately leave your stance.
Victory.
So you gotta kind of use it like that. You have a stance when you need stance, but then you never use stance any other time.
Round 4.
So here I'm gonna go with my basic combo until he decides to block me, like that. Now I block him. Now I can go back in.
Victory.
Boom. This will be the final one. So I think that's how you're gonna have to use no stance.
Round 5.
Of course, it's a new concept that no one's really gone with of using no stance, because everyone's seen it as like a fundamental part of the game, but not me. Nope, I see it as something that you kind of volunteer to do. And of course, you can also just go for a bunch of shield breaks on people like this
Victory.
that like to just turtle up. You can just go for a shield block and then no stance them. Or you can no stance the whole way, like I did in the example video. But the entire kind of concept of this is try to put out the most, either the most amount of damage or the least amount of damage. It depends on what you want to do. If you want to turtle up, turtle up. Actually, we're going to move my warband over here, because we're going to be attacking here, and then I can't take them. Actually, no. I'm going to leave my banner over here. But yes, join the samurai. We have not won many wars, but we are going to win this one, I feel. Oh no, we're losing troops. Oh no, it just depends on where you are. Okay. Of course, it's going to be hard to kind of push back there. But again, depending on who you play and where their starting stance is, then that depends on how you need to use your stance or no stance. See, it's kind of like a flash in between. Use stance to block, and then you can also use stance to
Round 1.
do attacks that normally would be blockable easily. Like here, as you can see, she blocked me there. Alright, so she's a very top-heavy stance, so
Victory.
of course you'll learn it as you play characters, and as you play against characters, you learn people's starting stance, what stance they prefer.
Round 2.
Like here I've learned she prefers a very top-heavy stance. So that means that whenever I use my stance to guard, I need to immediately try and go top. Like so. course, just watch people and how they play. Because that depends on how you use your stance. As you can see, use your stance mostly to block.
Round 3.
But again, this is a very new concept for most people, is not using stance. Because it's very fundamental to the game, or at least that's what most people believe. Not I. As you can see, top heavy stance. Her stance is still up. Again, you have nothing to kind of keep track of them, so you have to.
Victory.
As you can see, I was using my stance, but not at all to throw any attacks. That's the other thing. You have to use a fast character. If you don't use the fast character, then you won't be able to do anything. You won't be able to do any damage. You won't be able to do really anything in that fight. So we're going to deploy troops here. Yeah, so we need a lot of troops, guys. If you start playing this game, please come on down. Join us. Okay, so we're gonna win this. We're gonna win this next war, which is in 8 hours. I'm actually gonna move my banner here because we're not losing as badly here. So I would like to kind of. So yeah, look, if you see fast attack, mobile, agile, anything that means that they're fast, that's the kind of character you want to be using. And again, it's a very new thing. Not a lot of people really use it.
Round 1.
As you see, this man's first stance, or what he used as his first stance, was right. He wants to get these backstabs in, so just keep an eye on him.
Victory.
Of course, it always just depends on who you fight. And the longer you use no stance, the better you'll be with it.
Round 2.
Of course, this is a brand new concept, so no one's really shown any evidence of this. No one's really used this until now. Like, learn your characters. That's something that you're gonna have, is character knowledge. Be able to dodge. Learn, adapt, adjust.
Round 3.
Alright, he's gotta come to me. I'm gonna let him anyway. Hey buddy, I have this big old saw here for you. Remember, always use guard breaks if you need to. And watch your stamina. That's something that you'll see constantly. Put gear on that gives you more stamina or more health.
Victory.
Because not using a stance takes away our chance to kind of do big combos other than just chain light attacks. As you can see, he's trying to get behind me. As you can see, I've already run out of stamina, so I'm just gonna turtle up here. If you need to use your stance to kind of keep an eye on them, go ahead. Of course, we don't always be in our stance like we're just waiting for them to come at us, and then we kind of switch accordingly. No, no. We only use stance to last second dodge, turtle to get our stamina back, and that's really it. Other than that, we don't need our stance. So, what I'm actually going to do is choose map. This is basically all you do. If you want to learn how to use it, you can go into the basic arena and try to learn what people's starting stances are, who you need to watch out for, who has the same starting stance as you, and just kind of adjust. Who has what starting stance, who's fast, what faction are they in? How do I know this person will block the same? Of course, I know my guy always goes to the right. And you can check this just by going into the training arena and putting up your stance and holding it. It'll tell you which one his starting one is, because it'll automatically be there. But as you play characters, you'll slowly learn people's starting stances. Which you'll need to know, because everyone's starting stance is different. Of course, there's only 3 different combinations, but if you play someone else that's the same one as you, then it won't be very helpful. And we're fighting this person again, who does not have the same starting stance as us.
Victory.
As you can see, I only used my stance one time, and that was to block a potential attack. And that's really all we use our stance for.
Round 2.
Round 2. You really just want to be moving around the battlefield. That's the entire point of choosing a agile character.
Victory.
Is to be able just to move fast, move with precision. Learn the maps, learn which ways go up, go down.
Round 3.
Learn who has the same starting stances. It's all about stances, but we're not using any stances. So you have to learn stances, but we're not using it. So you have to learn the knowledge of stances to not use them. Very hypocritical, indeed.
Victory.
Now, as you can see there, I did throw the opposite attack, but that's actually a very valuable strategy. We did use our stance to attack there, but that was only because, number one, they had just blocked our combo. So if that happens, go into stance, try and block their next attack, because they're 100% about to. And then just learn everything you can about stances. So actually, I'm going to take us to a training match. Training arena, launch. Alright, so I'm only going to be using people in the samurai faction. So let's take Shinobi. Let's find his starting stance, which from the looks of it's going to be right. Let's figure out what our AI's starting stance is, and then figure out a counter. Now, of course, you can choose one main to play and have your buddies go with something else that goes against someone else's. So here we're playing just a basic warlord, I believe, is what he is. So, I see he puts his stance up right. So when I attack, that's all he's gonna fight. So we're gonna be using our stance every now and then to kind of choose where we want to attack from. But we don't hold that stance. You never hold the stance. You never want to hold that stance. Alright, so now knowing that they dodge to the right, we want to try and find a character that starts to the left. Which, I think Orochi might. So if they start to the right, go with someone that goes to the left. Or someone that goes up. I don't think there's anyone that has an up stance basic equipped. But if there is, go with them. Because they probably have the most amount of ways to go against. Oh, she has an up stance basic. Alright, so Orochi would actually be a very good choice. Because she has a basic up stance, and these are her left and right stances. And learn what people are using as their stance. So right here, I can tell he's using a right stance, and I know I'm an up stance. So I immediately know, as long as he stays in that stance, his basic stance, I'll get him every time. The biggest thing that you need to worry about here is who you're going against and what stance they use. So obviously, he having that right stance, if I was a less stance character, I could get him. I mean, I could get him good. But Orochi automatically resets to mid. It's a very neutral stance. It might actually be just full neutral stance. So what you can do with this, change the opponent. It looks to be that they have a left stance. You can always tell what kind of stance they have just by looking at them. So as you can see, they have a longsword and a dagger. Seeing how that longsword is on that side, if I attack from here... Ooh. Very interesting. Orochi has a completely neutral stance. Okay. Die. Now let's change to the opponent. To this guy. Alright, he has a left stance equipped. As you can see, left stance equipped. But being Orochi, we have a very neutral stance here. So until we find someone else that has another up stance, Orochi's looking to be our best option. There's this guy, which I don't think you'll be finding very much of. Let's see. He has what seems to be a left stance equipped right now. Yes, he does. So he having that left stance again, being Orochi, we have this nice up stance that we can use. And don't be afraid to use heavies. Never be afraid to use heavies. Alright, let's change again to this guy. Alright, let's see. Left stance. So we figured out that most knights have a left stance. So most samurai will probably have a right stance. And so let's test and see if most these guys will have an up stance. Ooh, interesting. Left stance. Of course, eventually you'll just learn that, oh, so this is their left stance, is their right stance, is their up stance. And once you have that down, you're good. This one's very tricky. Maybe because they don't have a stance equipped. So I think they're a lot like Orochi. As in they don't have a preferred stance. So if you like fighting with Vikings, there's your medium stance right there. What are you? I don't know. But as you can see, she has a left stance. So we're going to be abusing that by using... Now, of course, learn your unblockable hits. But here's the thing, alright, if you want to use your unblockable hits, you have to be in a stance. So know that if you want to use unblockable hits, you have to be in a stance, and this fighting style is not for you. Of course, I just want to get in there with these attacks. I'm going to assume that they have a left stance automatically equipped. Or a neutral stance. So if you have a neutral stance character, like good old Orochi here, it's a good idea to buy them first. Now, if we switch to a basic character that knights give for 500, like this guy, as you can see, his is to the left. And that guy's 500 for a left stance. So we can just assume that most knights have a left stance. So now if we start playing around with Vikings, here he is. So this is the most basic Viking you can use. He has a left stance. Let's try this out. He has a right stance. I've already used her. She has a left stance. What do you have, big boy? You have a neutral stance. This guy's 500 and he has a neutral stance, which is good. He's a nice and cheap and easy way to start off no stance in Vikings. Now let's start using the 1,000 characters. This guy costs 1,000 and he has a left stance. Which, it doesn't matter how expensive your guy is. It depends if you're good with them and what their starting stance is with this style. You can have the starting character on every single faction, but have a left stance and know all the other stances, and you'll win. We've used you have a neutral stance. Alright, who's up? Okay, you have a left stance. So, most people have a left stance. But now, let's try and look at people that have a right stance in the Samurai faction, which I believe is most of them. This guy, not so much. He has a left stance. Alright, let's try Big Chunk Boy. What do you have, big boy? You also have a left stance. I think most characters in the game have a basic left stance automatically equipped. And this is the same person. And they both have a neutral stance, so they cancel out, and there's no stance preference for either one. Because since we're both holding it the exact same, it's a neutral stance. But then if we do here or here, it has the exact same result. And you can also change this up depending on who you're fighting. So if I change this to you, which is the assassin, you can see he has a starting right stance. So if I switch to a left stance as my preferred stance, off the bat, boom. I believe you have a starting right stance. Oh. I think it changes because of my view. But yes, most characters start with a left stance for you. But then now I can counter that by just using this side and this. So now knowing that, actually I don't have you, so I would like to know your stance. Okay, I fought you before. A neutral stance. Good to know. Oh no, left stance again. Alright, let's try out these guys. What do you have, good sir? Alright, you have a starting left stance like everyone else. At least she also has a very neutral stance. There are any flaws with my strategy here, please leave them in the comments so I can learn and try to adapt to what I lose from using no stance. So like this is what you'll normally be seeing when you're using no stance. But of course, as Orochi, we can switch it to now be this. Oh no. So Orochi has a up stance. I believe she is one of the few characters in the game that actually has this up stance. I believe you lose the power of executions when you use no stance. Something you can do is when you know that your opponent's on low health, go into stance and just heavy attack, and then you can execute. If you want to do executions out in the normal kind of world. I think that's all of them. Again, most characters have a basic left stance. Orochi has a up stance that is neutral. So for instance, if we change it to the same character, as you can see, it shows no stance. If I go out of stance, it's up. If I go into stance, it's also up. Let's try and throw this attack and this attack. As you can see, but you can only block for a split second, which is fine for how we want to play. And that's just my guide for no stance. You want to try and get Orochi as fast as possible, which if you would just want to power level your way through the game, you can pay $5, $10, or $20, I believe, and just get Orochi almost immediately. And then you can just power level your way through the game, buying gear, etc., just to make her your most OP character. Remember, no stance. So if I wanted to fight this guy, as you can see, we have a basic up neutral stance, which means that no one can block us, and we can't block anyone as well. Biggest thing, learn to fight without your combos. I know people would be like, alright, combo, 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 you know? You know, like, ooh, there's my unblockable combo, or yeah, there's another one. You know, learn to fight without those. So when you use your stance, you're only using it to block. So we're gonna change opponents to this guy. Some to yeah, some to level 3. As you see, demolished. He got no hidden, if he even hits. Nope, still does not hit. Huh. Oh, can you still use combos? I think you can still use basic combos. Or is that like a empowered heavy attack? I don't know, I'm still learning about the game. If someone knows what it is, please tell me. I know this means I'm out of stamina. What was that? Chain top heavy, okay. So just learn to fight without your unblockable moves, but learn to fight with chains. Like so. Let's actually turn on... Boom. Opponent Revenge. So if that was a normal battle and we stunned him that many times, he would have gotten actually really close to... He probably would have gotten us almost down. But again, we have this nice little easy blocking thing where we can kind of just easy switch it. Which is something you're gonna have to learn quickly, is learn how to block. Now of course, Orochi's best case scenario. That's if you just immediately just went in with the game and she's only 500. But then if you wanted to put in some more hours and you got this guy, or you bought this guy, then you're looking good. Because he has a basic stance of this way, which is again most stances in the game, almost all of them as a matter of fact, except for Orochi's. Here's the best part: as long as you're finding someone that uses stance, they're gonna have their stance up. You know, they're gonna be ready to block you from over here, because that's where they think that you're probably about to throw an attack. But since you're not using a stance, they might block over here, might block up. Whichever way they block, it doesn't matter. Because you are the most unpredictable person there. Unless you're fighting other no-stancers. Then it becomes a bit of a problem, and that means that you have to fight with the Orochi. So if you play your first game, you're like, oh, I'm fighting other no-stancers. And you could tell because, you know, none of them put up their stance. Then here's what you do. You play Orochi. Because she has neutrals. She has neutral up, neutral left, neutral right. Which means you can block there, but only for a short amount of time. And it means that you have no one stance. You have a neutral stance. And so now here, as you can see, I have my right stance, but he has the opposite stance. As you can see, it looks like for the house stance, that's what basic stance looks like. So as you can see, if I hit here, boom, I get deflected. But without a stance, I hit him. And then we can also do that. Boom. You never want to forget that you have that move, because then it just takes away their stance. Especially if you're fighting in a group, that's an amazing thing to use. But I think that's it for this video. I'm finally glad I've learned to do this. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time. Stay echoed. If I can figure out how to stop.